The glass walls of the penthouse gleamed in the late afternoon sun, but CEO Alexander Grant wasn't admiring the view. He paced across the living room, one hand clutching his phone, the other tugging at the collar of his starched white shirt. He was used to board meetings, high-stakes negotiations, deals worth millions, but today was different. Today was his daughter Emily's 7th birthday party, and he was already failing. The caterer had cancelled last minute. The decorator had sent the wrong balloon colors, purple and teal instead of Emily's beloved pink. And worst of all, the entertainment, the clown Emily had begged for, was nowhere to be found. "Relax, Dad," Emily said, padding into the room in her sparkly tutu. "You promised there'd be cake and fun, right? That's all I want." Her tiny voice pierced his chest. Alexander ruffled her hair, forcing a smile. "There will be, sweetheart. I promise." A knock came at the door. His assistant, already frazzled from rerouting business calls to voicemail, rushed to open it. On the threshold stood a woman, not in a rainbow wig or painted face, but in a simple polka dot dress, carrying a duffel bag. Her auburn hair spilled over her shoulders, and her hazel eyes twinkled with warmth. "You're the clown?" Alexander asked, incredulous. She gave a sheepish smile. "Technically, yes. My stage name's Bubbles. The wig and makeup are in here," she said, patting the bag. "But sometimes, especially with shy kids, I tone it down. Too much face paint can be scary." Emily peeked out from behind her father's leg, curiosity sparking in her wide eyes. "Are you going to do magic tricks?" The woman crouched to Emily's level, producing a balloon from her pocket. With a few swift twists, she crafted a perfect balloon puppy. She handed it to Emily, who squealed with delight. "I can do magic tricks, juggling, silly songs, you name it. But only if birthday girls give me permission." Emily giggled. "You have permission." Alexander exhaled, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. He gestured for her to come inside. "All right then, Bubbles. Let's see what you can do." As the party unfolded, the living room transformed. The woman had the children laughing so hard they toppled over each other. She made balloon crowns, pulled endless scarves from her sleeves, and even coaxed Emily's shy best friend into performing a dance. Alexander found himself watching not just his daughter's joy, but the woman who had created it. She wasn't loud or garish. Instead, she had this rare ability to make every child feel seen, important. Even the parents lingering at the back began to laugh, swept into her easy charm. At one point, Emily whispered something into her ear. A moment later, Bubbles called Alexander up to the front. "Ladies and gentlemen," she declared, her voice theatrical, "our birthday girl says her dad is the bravest man she knows. But can he prove it?" Before Alexander could protest, she balanced a juggling pin on his head. The children erupted in cheers. Emily clapped so hard her little hands turned red. Alexander, normally stiff and controlled, couldn't help but laugh along, the sound rusty but genuine. When the last child left and the sugar rush faded, Emily collapsed on the couch, hugging her balloon puppy. "Best birthday ever," she murmured before drifting to sleep. The woman quietly began packing her things. "Thank you," Alexander said, his voice low. "You saved the day." She looked up, smiling softly. It wasn't about saving the day. It was about making her feel loved. That's all kids really want. Something in her words lingered. For a man who measured success in contracts and numbers, it struck a chord. As she turned to leave, Alexander found himself asking, "Wait, what's your real name?" She paused at the door, hazel eyes meeting his. "Lila." And for the first time that day, Alexander wondered if fate had sent him more than just a clown. The Grant estate was buzzing with chatter and the rustle of expensive dresses. Alexander Grant, CEO of a tech empire, had spared no expense for his daughter Emily's 7th birthday. He had ordered a bouncy castle, a dessert table the size of a car, and, at Emily's pleading, a clown. Everything ran on schedule, except the clown. "Mr. Grant, she's late," his event planner whispered nervously. "Should I send in the dancers to distract the kids?" "No," Alexander muttered, loosening his tie. "Emily asked for a clown. She'll get one." He prided himself on delivering results. In business, in life, and especially as a father since his wife had passed 3 years ago. He could not bear the thought of his little girl's disappointment. Just as he was about to make another call, the gates opened, and a small car rattled up the driveway. Out stepped a woman in worn jeans, sneakers, and a faded hoodie. No face paint, no wig. She carried only a battered leather case. "This has to be a mistake," Alexander said under his breath. The woman gave a small, apologetic wave. "Mr. Grant, I'm Mia, the clown you hired. You're joking." "Not right now." She set the case down and opened it. Inside were juggling pins, colorful scarves, and battered magic props. "I'm not the kind of clown who hides behind paint. Kids connect better with real faces. If you want someone in a rainbow wig, I'm not your girl. But if you want them laughing, I can promise that." Before Alexander could respond, Emily dashed forward. "Are you the clown?" Mia crouched, pulling a coin from Emily's ear. The girl gasped, eyes wide. "Magic." And just like that, the children swarmed. Alexander stood aside, arms folded, watching. At first, he expected her to fail. She had no glitter, no booming voice, no circus flair. But Mia had something else, a way of pulling the kids into her world. She taught them to juggle scarves, turned paper into flowers, and made up silly rhymes on the spot. The backyard filled with shrieks of laughter. When Emily got shy during a game, Mia gently guided her forward, never forcing, always encouraging. Alexander hadn't seen his daughter beam like that in years. Parents began whispering, impressed. Even the planner, who had been ready to call in backup, stood slack-jawed. Later, as the sun dipped low, Mia performed her final trick. She held up a blank sketchbook, flipped it once, and suddenly the pages filled with drawings, princesses, unicorns, and one unmistakably of Emily herself in a crown. The little girl gasped and hugged her. "Best clown ever," Emily cried. Something in Alexander's chest softened. He wasn't used to being surprised. His world was contracts, forecasts, predictable outcomes. But Mia had walked in, disarming, unpolished, and somehow turned chaos into magic. After the last guest left, Alexander found Mia in the kitchen sipping water, cheeks flushed from performing. "You're not what I expected," he admitted. "Most people don't expect much from clowns," she replied with a shrug. "But kids don't need perfection. They need presence." Her words sank deep. Alexander realized how much time he spent chasing perfection, in his company, his home, even in how he tried to be a father. But maybe Emily needed this instead. Someone who could meet her on her level, with laughter and patience. Mia packed up her things, ready to leave. Emily clung to her hand. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Mia smiled. "If your dad lets me." Emily's hopeful eyes turned to Alexander. For once, he had no clever answer, only a simple truth. He wanted to say yes. Alexander Grant was used to commanding boardrooms, not children's parties. Yet here he was, in a backyard filled with squealing 7-year-olds, trying not to look like the stiffest dad alive. Everything had gone smoothly, until the clown failed to show up. His daughter Emily, wearing a sparkly pink crown, tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, where's the clown? You promised." His stomach sank. He had promised. "Sweetheart, she's just delayed." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Alexander practically sprinted to answer it. On the porch stood a woman, not in clown makeup, but in a fitted blazer, high heels, and a sleek ponytail. She carried a laptop bag, not balloons. "Mr. Grant," she asked crisply. "I'm Harper Collins. You requested entertainment for Emily's party." Alexander blinked. "You're the clown." She winced. "Not exactly. I'm a children's entertainer. My agency double-booked, so I got reassigned from a corporate seminar to this. I'm improvising." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Improvising. These are kids, not executives." "Exactly," Harper replied. "Children are tougher critics. But trust me, I've closed deals in rooms full of billionaires. If I can hold their attention, I can handle a few 7-year-olds. Emily peered out from behind her dad. "Do you juggle?" Harper crouched, slipping a handful of oranges from the fruit bowl. She juggled them smoothly, tossing in a wink at Emily. The girl squealed. "She's perfect." Alexander gaped. "You're, what? An entertainer and a juggler?" Harper flashed a grin. "I pick up skills in my spare time. Stress relief." What followed was nothing short of chaotic brilliance. Harper ditched her heels, tied her blazer around her waist, and dove into full-on party mode. She had the kids chanting silly rhymes, balancing spoons on their noses, and staging a pirate treasure hunt using post-it notes. The backyard exploded with laughter. Emily looked happier than Alexander had seen her in years. At one point, Harper convinced Alexander to join in. She handed him a balloon sword and declared, "Behold, the birthday princess's night." The children cheered. Alexander, mortified at first, found himself laughing as he sparred clumsily with Harper in a mock duel. She was quick, playful, and when she let him win, Emily jumped up and down shouting, "Daddy saved the day." Something shifted in him then. For the first time in ages, Alexander wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or client calls. He was just present. After the last slice of cake was gone and the kids were heading home, Harper helped Emily gather her presents. When Emily darted off to her room, Alexander found Harper in the kitchen rinsing her hands. "You know," he said, leaning against the counter, "you saved me today. I was seconds away from hiring a mariachi band just to distract the kids." Harper laughed. "Now that, I would have paid to see." He studied her, curious. "Why does someone like you, someone who clearly has a corporate background, moonlight as a clown?" She shrugged, drying her hands. "My mom was a children's performer. She taught me everything. When she passed, I kept it up part-time. It's not about the money. It's about the joy. Sometimes kids need magic more than adults need seminars." Her words lingered. Alexander, who lived in a world defined by margins and strategy, suddenly realized how starved he'd been for that kind of simplicity. Emily popped back into the room, hugging Harper's leg. "You're coming back next year, right?" Alexander looked at Harper, his lips twitching into a rare smile. "Maybe sooner than that." She raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering in her eyes. "Careful, Mr. Grant." That almost sounded like a date. For once, Alexander didn't deflect. Maybe it was. The house was too quiet for a birthday. Alexander Grant paced the marble foyer, his phone buzzing with unanswered calls. The caterer had delivered late, the balloons had popped in the wind, and now, the clown he'd hired was 30 minutes past due. Emily sat on the staircase, her princess dress pulled around her ankles, her chin resting in her hands. "Daddy," maybe she forgot. The disappointment in her voice made his chest ache. He had promised her this party would be special. Ever since her mother died, he'd been desperate to fill the empty spaces with anything that could make Emily smile. A sharp knock echoed through the hall. Alexander pulled open the door, and froze. On the porch stood a woman, not in costume, not with balloons, but in a simple sundress. In her arms she carried a battered red nose, a handful of scarves, and a violin case. Her dark hair was tied back loosely, and her eyes, green, steady, familiar, met his. "It couldn't be Clara," he whispered, her lips curved in a hesitant smile. "Hello, Alex." He hadn't seen her in nearly 10 years. Once, she had been his college sweetheart, the woman he almost married. She'd left suddenly, chasing her dream of becoming a traveling performer. And now, impossibly, she stood on his doorstep as the clown he had unknowingly hired. "You're the clown?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "I prefer performer. But yes." She lifted the violin case. "Music, laughter, magic, whatever the kids need." Before Alexander could process, Emily bounded down the stairs. "Are you my clown?" Clara crouched, pulling a silk scarf from behind Emily's ear. "That depends. Are you my birthday girl?" Emily's eyes lit up, and just like that, the tension in the room eased. Clara swept into the house, filling it with color and laughter as though she had never left. She led the children in games, balanced spinning plates, and finally drew her violin. The haunting notes filled the air, silencing even the most restless kids. Alexander watched Emily twirl to the music, her laughter bubbling free. For the first time in years, she looked weightless, as though her grief had loosened its grip. But Alexander's gaze never strayed far from Clara. Every movement she made was achingly familiar. He remembered late nights in college when she'd practiced that very song in their tiny apartment. He remembered the way she used to whisper her dreams of performing for children across the world. He remembered how she had left without a goodbye. When the last child had gone home and Emily was tucked into bed, Alexander found Clara packing her things. "You should have told me," he said quietly. "I didn't know it was your party," she replied, avoiding his eyes. "I just take the gigs my agency assigns." "That's not what I meant." His voice softened. "You disappeared, Clara, 10 years. And now you walk back in like nothing happened." She set the violin case down, her shoulders trembling. "I thought I was doing the right thing. You wanted stability, Alex. I wanted chaos. I didn't think we fit. And now," Clara finally met his gaze, her eyes shimmering. "Now I see your daughter. I see the man you've become. And I wonder if maybe I was wrong." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken history. Alexander stepped closer, searching her face. "Emily adores you. I never stopped missing you." Her breath caught, the years collapsing between them. But before she could speak, a small voice called from the stairs. "Daddy, can Clara come back tomorrow?" Alexander turned, his heart twisting. He looked at Clara, who stood frozen, hope flickering across her face. He smiled gently. "If she wants to." And in that moment, surrounded by echoes of laughter and violin notes, Alexander realized fate had just handed him a second chance.